ironically reporting on Time.com's Athlete of the Year, which is one Miss Caitlin Clark, which, is fantastic. I have been a fan of Miss Clark since she showed up, and it's pretty cool that she's being recognized. What do I mean? Especially with female sports and the fact that female sports are so desperate to continue their LGBT stranglehold on those sports, in particular the WNBA, which I don't think any one of us can disagree that it's pretty much the entire WNBA has been a playground for the LGBT MAP movement. And so to see her being recognized, at least by one major outlet, is pretty impressive. And it's good. I think it's a good thing because it shows that that talent is rewarded. And it's finally breaking this idea that, oh, well, Caitlin's been nice, but it's really Caitlin and Angel Reese. Is it really Caitlin and Angel Reese? That is not a bird magic combo. Now, Angel Reese's people were smart enough to hook themselves up to Caitlin Clark because they knew she was shooting up to the ceiling, and then they were going to be just by association, linked up with Caitlin Clark. So good for them. Angel Reese, she's a fine player, nowhere close to the skill of somebody like Caitlin Clark. But let's take a look at the Time magazine, or the CNN article talking about Time magazine, because it's all very incestuous, apparently. Caitlin Clark, who helped draw crowds to arenas around the country and drive up viewership numbers in her final year of college, and then her rookie year in the WNBA, has been named Time's Athlete of the Year. I think that's a great understatement. She didn't draw crowds. She shattered records. She's a generational talent, and she's been impactful. And it was kind of interesting with the culture war, how, the rise of Caitlin Clark this year was tied to, not fair to her. We in the culture war, we like to kind of tie people's hands to certain values, but because she was from Iowa and she had a boyfriend and she went to a smaller school, we were like, oh, conservative values. Oh! And we just kind of fell in love with her and not just said, hey, this girl's really good. She, the best compliment you can tell her is that she plays like a dude, and she's really good at playing ball, and it's actually fun to watch her play. Unlike a lot of, WNBA players who, listen, you're a professional athlete. I can't take that away from you, but the standard of professional athletes lowered a little bit by that. Anyway, Clark, 22, helped continue in 2024 growing the popularity of the WNBA. That is a big fat lie, because the WNBA was not popular in 2023. So I don't know how you're going with, oh, well, it continued the rise of it. No, it started when she showed up. So nice try, Time. You like how they do that kind of stuff? In her debut season with the Indiana Fever, following a stellar career at Iowa, Clark took home Rookie of the Year and was named an All-WNBA first team, first rookie to do so since 2008 during the 2024 season. She also did a bunch of other stuff. That was great. Meanwhile, ratings for the WNBA regular season and postseason, not just games involving Clark, were up. Come on, man. Come on. You're not convincing anybody with this article. Not just games. It was just not a game with Caitlin Clark. It was everybody. Yeah, everybody got, all their games went up. Maybe. But if like 10 people were watching, and because of Caitlin Clark, 12 people decided to watch instead of 10, we're not going to say that is a drastic rise in viewership, because all of the arenas that Caitlin Clark was not in were still half empty. So let's not try to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. Additionally, the WNBA had its highest attendance total in 22 years because of Caitlin Clark. It was blah, 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 blah. Last week, Clark debuted in Sportico's highest paid female athletes list, with her earnings totaling $11.1 million. So, yeah, because she's making endorsements, because people, and like Nike's not even pushing her. She signed a deal with Nike, but she's being put on the sidelines for I don't even know the other girl's name, but she's playing second fiddle to another girl right now because the WNBA does not want Clark front and center because they don't want a white woman promoting the league. It's that simple. And that's why I have to disagree with the great Jason Clark. He is fantastic. I am a huge fan of his. And so to have him say this, it's kind of disingenuous on my part, or on his part, that he's going to say this, where he states, and I quote, Caitlin Clark has bent the knee, kissing the rear. This is Jason Clark. Rear of black women is a rite of passage in the WNBA. This is something that comes from the Time article. Clark is cognizant of the racial underpinnings of her stardom. Quote, I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is a privilege, unquote, says Clark. Quote, a lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has kind of been built on them. The more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, and then continue to have brands and companies invest in those players that have made this league incredible, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try and change that. The more we can elevate black women, the more it's going to be a beautiful thing. Now, Jason is not very happy with this statement. I get it. I get it. I understand it. She may believe this 100%, right? There was that time during the election where she liked the Taylor Swift post endorsing Kamala Harris. Remember, she's a 22-year-old girl. She's a 22-year-old girl. She's probably going to lean more left in her opinions than not, just naturally. What's the saying? If you're not a liberal at 22, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 35, you have no brain. She's a liberal. She's young. Let her be young. And if you can't hold your political views to her and make her held hostage to it. And so her team also, that feels like a political statement that her team wrote. Right? Her management, her publicists, they're like, listen, you're going to get this award and you got to head off the racist backlash that's going to come your way. Okay? Regardless of everything you've done, you have to understand that the black queens in the NBA or the WNBA are going to be so angry that specific women that they have tried to highlight have not been given this award before. You've been given this award. What are they going to say? They're going to say they gave it to you because you are a white woman. And they are going to look at all the buzzwords she's using. White privilege. I have all this. She even says, I kind of earned it, but I have this privilege. That is her team saying, yeah, you can give yourself credit, but you have to acknowledge the privilege. Because if you don't, you're going to get run out of town, and there's going to be everybody on ESPN and all these places are just going to dog walk you for weeks because you didn't give respect to the people that came before you. Give them a tip of the cap and move on. I think from a political standpoint, I think it's a brilliant move. Right? I'm not going to expect a 22-year-old who nearly got her eye removed from her socket in the playoffs by that girl with them long, nasty nails. She nearly lost an eye in the first round of the playoffs, and you want her to come out and be like, and espouse your values? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's unfortunate, but I think live now, give the flowers to the people in front of you. That gives you a little bit of leeway next season, because there's a lot of women in the WNBA that do not like Caitlin Clark. They don't. It's that simple. Despite the fact that she was bringing in money for them, despite the fact that the only reason they were on private jets was because of her, despite the fact that people actually gave a rip about the WNBA was because of her, they still don't like her. For whatever reason, you can make that up on your own. They don't. So she's got to get around this. How does she get around it? Oh, well, we have to respect the women that came before us, and, they're black, and we have to make sure that blah, 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 blah. Okay, let her do it. I think it's a very smart political statement. She's 22, 23 years old. Let her, after she's the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history, after she's a legend, let her come out and say what she needs to say. Right now, she's just got to survive. And so I don't want to disagree with Jason Whitlock, but I'm not as disappointed. I look at it like, yeah, you got to do it. If you don't do it, your life is going to be miserable. If you don't, they're going to absolutely just rip you apart mercilessly. And now that she's done that, when training camp comes around, this will not be as much of an issue. Because if she didn't give credit to the queens that came before her, they're going to run right up to him. What did you think about Caitlin Clark winning Athlete of the Year and how she took credit for the league? Boom. And then that just gives them a license to tee off. She's headed off at the pass. It gives her a little bit of leeway. And I think you have to put yourself in her shoes. She's not Jason Whitlock. She's not the successful writer who has control of his own destiny and all these other things that Jason has the fortunate, because he's a talented writer and a talented speaker and a talented tastemaker. He can say and do. Caitlin Clark's not in that position. She may be the money train. She may be the breadwinner for that league, but she is not the name of that league. She doesn't even have a say in that league. So you have to look at it this way. She does this, she gets away, she lives to fight another day. So I don't have a problem with it. Unfortunately, other people do. And I get why, because you're giving too much respect to people that didn't really build up a league. They treated the WNBA as their own personal tax write-off. They did whatever they wanted to do. They got, Caitlin Clark made $75,000 a year, and people thought that was a big deal. That's what's the median average salary is $45,000 for a person in these United States. And she was making more than that in a half a year playing basketball. And a lot of these other women are making that money playing basketball. And until Caitlin Clark showed up, they were not making the necessary money to pay back the league. Now, the NBA doesn't mind because it's a tax write-off. It's the greatest tax write-off. $1 billion tax write-off here, $1 billion tax write-off there. They don't care. It's fine. But Caitlin Clark has to walk this line, or else it's going to be worse for her down the road. And that makes sense. I get it. You just have to make sure that you're doing things not short-sighted, and you have to do things from a position of strength. Caitlin Clark does not have a position of strength right now. Oh, well, she's the face of the league. And guys, like I said, she was getting fouled really hard last year. She nearly lost her eye. You have other players openly questioning her and openly saying how much they dislike her. And she's going to come out and be like, yep, blah, 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 blah. It's all me. Suck it, losers. I mean, we'd love that. We'd be like, yeah, that's great. But nah, it's not going to happen.